Okay, welcome very much. It's so good. Welcome back to MNN. You've been here before. And in the audience, welcome to Conversations. Pleasure to welcome to the program a young lady. Her name is Nicole Hummel, and she's billed as a media producer and also educator, which is very interesting. And just sort of parenthetically, she's been involved for a couple of years with the great pioneer of public access television in the widest sense, Dee Dee Hallack and the Deep Dish Network. And Nicole, welcome very, very much to Conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Glad we could fit it in. I know you're off tomorrow on a long stay, so I'm glad we could fit it in. And I wonder if you could, Nicole, share with us your own, this is going to be in a very real sense the Nicole Hummel Hour. And not only in terms of your own personal background, but also in terms of your take on things that could be representative of the youth of the country and all that. But could you do that for us, please? Share where you were born and raised, a little of your education, and then let's talk about media and the state of the world and that sort of thing, if you don't mind. Okay?
It's ambitious. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to school there.
Where did you grow up and where'd you go to school?
So I grew up near Topanga Canyon, near the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, right.
Outside of Los Angeles, around 30 miles. And then I went to school in downtown LA. I went to USC to film school.
I taught 1 year there at Long Beach, the University of California at Long Beach. It was gorgeous weather, if I remember.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Every day is a nice day, it seems. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but so I studied international relations and also film.
Oh, you did?
And then I moved out to New York a couple years ago, 2 years ago, and started working with Dee Dee at Deep Dish.
Okay. Right out of college.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, first I went and I was a raft guide for a summer out in Colorado. But
down the river, whitewater?
Yeah, whitewater rafting.
That's pretty exciting, I would think. I've only seen it on film. I didn't know, but it's really is an exciting thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. But so then I came to New York, and I was really excited about what was going on here in terms of independent media.
Yeah.
I had learned about Paper Tiger and Deep Dish TV doing a lot of radical stuff with media, kind of taking it away from this mainstream media representations and really critiquing that. So I was really excited coming to New York to get in touch with Deep Dish and especially Dee Dee.
Yeah, Dee Dee's wonderful. But I wonder if we could back up a little bit. You said you studied international relations. Did you seriously do that? You studied geopolitical thinking and all that? That's interesting. Did you do that before you got involved with media issues?
Yeah. It was actually, I got involved with international relations was my major in college. And
really?
So I was, that was my main focus.
And you took a bachelor's degree then? Okay, good.
And so I was mostly studying foreign policy and
really interesting.
And I also studied abroad while I was in college. I was in Brazil. So
for how long?
For 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What part?
What part of Brazil?
Yeah.
I was in Bahia, in Salvador. On the coast of Brazil.
So then if you studied international relations, Hans Morgenthau or, George Kennan and geostrategic thinking and realpolitik and all of that are things that you were immersed in. What was the family setting? Was it intellectually curious? Was there talk about things other than mundane around the table?
I was actually really disappointed, I guess, with the way that things were discussed in my program. I felt like it was...
No, I was talking about your family.
Oh, what was
the family setting? Was it intellectually curious? Was there encouragement? Were you talking about something meaningful rather than just mundane at the dinner table?
I think that since I was young, I was really interested in what was going on in the rest of the world. My dad is from France.
Oh, really?
And so I was raised speaking French and English and traveling a lot.
Fluent French?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
And traveling a lot to France to visit my family that's there.
Okay.
So I think I grew up really curious about traveling in the world and about different languages, and that's actually really manifested. I've since learned 2 more languages, Spanish and Portuguese.
Oh, good for you.
And it was always something that was really... Yeah, I would definitely say that I grew up in an intellectually curious
and encouraging. I think the family setting might be more significant than the university setting, possibly, for autodidact or real self-learning, because you're really like a hound dog on the scent of a fox.
Yeah,
you know?
I would agree, sort of, but then also in college, something that was really formative for me was starting a co-op house. And basically this was kind of the first cooperative housing situation at USC, the University of Southern California, which is very focused on fraternities and sororities.
Yeah.
It was the first co-op at USC by students since the 70s. That was when the last one had closed down, and it really became starting this co-op and being involved in developing this
residential co-op?
Yeah, residential co-op, like a student
was
housing
it co-ed?
co-op. Mm-hmm.
Was
yeah,
it,
it was
yeah,
co-ed.
okay,
It was
that's
15
it.
of us living in a house, and it really became like an epicenter of student organizing and a lot of the different
on the campus.
On the campus,
political and otherwise.
Yeah. I would say that a lot of the more progressive student organizations and people that were really active in those organizations really spent a lot of time at the co-op, so it kind of became a hub at USC for more like radical thinking and activism and politics in general at a very mainstream conservative school.
It's conservative.
USC is a really wealthy private school.
Is that what it is? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, tuition is $50,000 a year.
Good grief! You could really run up a debt, couldn't you? You have
definitely.
a debt. There's a question of student debt is something that people are confronted with.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
definitely.
I think it should be addressed. But then you became politically active then, in a sense. Local politics, international concerns. Did they come up in the context of what you were doing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
There was a lot of.
That's the activist kind of thing. And okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a lot of student organizing. When I was there, there was a lot of student organizing around sweatshop labor, and particularly this one group that I was sort of loosely affiliated with, Student Coalition Against Labor Exploitation.
Oh, good.
Which was fighting basically for workers' rights, but the workers that were producing the apparel that was sold at the university bookstore.
Was it down to sweatshop conditions
yeah,
you could find?
exactly.
Really, in Southern California.
Well,
Much less in
the
the
clothing
world.
wasn't being made in Southern California. You know, it was being shipped across. But I think that the students really had a lot of agency in terms of organizing around this, because the students are the ones that are supposed to be buying this clothing. And as students of USC, the administration wants to keep them happy.
Yeah, sure.
So there was a lot of progress on that front.
Did you respect the tradition of Cesar Chavez and United Fruit Workers and so forth, or not? Or did it come up?
I mean, we definitely learned about it and talked about it and were inspired by Cesar Chavez, but that it wasn't really the same issue that we were.
Yeah, and you were concerned with justice? Were you concerned with justice in your overall philosophy and so forth, justice for what is termed, in comparison with the consciousness schools, or the least among us, or the least advantaged people of the world? Did that motivate your so-called progressive agenda?
Yeah,
or could you address what does it mean to be progressive in your consciousness, representing youth?
Yeah, so I don't know. I would definitely say that it's changed over the past couple years for me.
Couple of years, things changed fast, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say during college I was definitely motivated by this idea of, helping other people that weren't as privileged as me.
Well, that's what.
And being concerned about justice and equality around the world. And I was especially thinking a lot, about poverty, and I think that it's gotten
idealistic.
A lot more,
Is that right?
Well,
they say if you're youthful and not idealistic, there's something wrong with you. If you're old and idealistic, there's something wrong with you. You're supposed to learn the hard lesson of idealism is just flighty stuff that doesn't have any meaning. But do you understand what I mean? That is,
I do.
all the wisdom schools, Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, everybody said be concerned with the least. Not just cozy up to those who are already powerful and rich, which is the want of most of our institutions,
well, and I think
don't you
that
think?
Absolutely.
It's essentially unjust. It favors overwhelmingly those who are already wealthy and in the saddle, right?
Yeah.
And you object to that.
No, I do agree with that.
You agree with the perception, but you disagree with the idea that everything's owned by a few people and the world is unjust, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms
I
of the
definitely
math
think that those
and
kinds
the
of
ecology.
systems of oppression need to be dismantled. And I feel, it's gotten a lot more complicated, because I think that, when I was in college, I was thinking a lot about in a kind of model that I think a lot of NGOs coming from the West tend to work in this sort of charity model, and this idea of helping others, and it ends up being
help the others
really,
become like us.
right?
Yeah,
and
right.
it ends up being really imperialist, right? And that was something that I that really confused me initially, and I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And I think that I've kind of, in the past couple of years especially, really developed my understanding of how I can work in a way that's more in solidarity with people that are struggling in other countries or in my own country, but in a way that, you know, I'm connected to that struggle as well, because this person is suffering, or because this person isn't liberated, I'm not really liberated myself. You know, there's this, and so there's this connection that I feel like I maybe didn't have as much before.
Well, that's good. Maybe it's growing out of some of your works with Deep Dish.
Yeah.
Because they're essentially that way. Dee Dee's been that from the beginning, and Joel is very concerned with that too, her husband, and they're great people and everything. But I'm wondering if I could, and I don't want to get, you know, we're going to talk a lot about media because, and you're also an instructor, I want to get to that. But the idea of, I wonder if you could, the concept, we mentioned George Kennan, containment, you know, the whole thing, and the whole world, Hans Morgenthau, and Real. When you were studying international relations and they talk about, what is your interpretation you gleaned from educational process or from your own life's experience or from whatever, by the term realpolitik, or reality-based politics, international? What is your understanding of that? It seems to me, I just wonder how you read that. If it's Hans Morgenthau or Henry Kissinger would be a realpolitik. How do you read the term realpolitik? What does it mean in terms of intellectual consideration of the human condition?
Well, I mean, I would say it's definitely not a focus on the human side of things. It's, I would define realpolitik as, you know, the state acting in its own self-interest. You know,
the sovereign
whether
state,
it is,
the nation state,
the nation state, whether it is, you know, making sure that, you know, you have control over particular resources, or, you know, and not necessarily taking into consideration this human factor. You know, suffering, famine, or whatever often isn't really a concern in realpolitik, because generally those people that are suffering are not the ones that are influential
or powerful
or important
in
that frame.
Some people would say that realpolitik is one thing you don't want to do is all strung out on some ideology that's going to get you off, like, say, Hitler had an ideology of racial superiority or some nonsense. You don't want to get strung out on some ideology that takes you away from reality. And the reality, the responsibility of political leadership or leadership is to be based in reality rather than some ideological projection of some moral good or something, you know.
Right. And the idea of morality is completely
it's all based on national interest, responsibility for the political leadership.
And so, I mean, I would say that was kind of the frame of reference or the paradigm that I was really taught in college through my international relations program.
Particularly in international relations,
And it was something that, you know, I really struggled with, and that I consistently, I felt frustrated that I wasn't exposed to any other theories. You know, it was very much a focus on that, and I was exposed to some other, you know, readings in class, but I think it was mostly through the organizing that I was doing outside of my studies that I really
got it with that co-op. And
even the conversations. I mean, just to expand a little bit on the co-op, is like even the conversations that we would have within the house, within the resident, like the people that were living in the house, really shaped me a lot, shaped my politics a lot, my understanding of identity and race, and gender and sexuality, and just became much more complicated, and I think interesting,
and revelatory. It wasn't Animal House.
Yeah.
Maybe once in a while a keg party, but you know what I mean. You know, and you're young and everything. I remember, all that sort of thing. But that realpolitik thing was, and I didn't mean to make a side. That was a joke.
Funny.
You know? But Animal House had some things to say for it. You know, and everything.
Definitely.
But there's a spirit there that's youthful and it's very encouraging and everything like that. But I mean, realpolitik sometimes is. based on the idea that whoever, like the British had the Gatling gun, so they were able to enforce their thing on India because they only had rifles. And whoever's got the weapons, that's reality, and you can go and steal the grain or conquer or imperialism and all of that. You became aware of that, as opposed to some idealistic thing that's concerned with the least among us, back to that issue. So that's a grounding thing. And usually the youth tend to have that kind of an attitude, or appreciation of that attitude. And I think we could learn from 5-year-olds, to tell you the truth. They're really in great.
I agree.
They're my favorite people. I think they're totally honest, no artifice at all.
Well, yeah, and that's what I've gotten more into lately. In the past year, I've started teaching.
Are you really?
And I've been teaching video production to youth. So it's been, I actually started off teaching to 3rd and 4th graders. So they're 8 and 9-year-olds that are learning how to use video cameras and everything.
Great.
But I definitely would agree that you can learn a lot from
Aren't
a
they?
child.
I think 5, at 5, they're just totally honest. It just seems universal. There are certain principles that are operative no matter whatever political nonsense we come up with to do whatever. Yeah. There's certain patterns that are apparent in the evolutionary process itself. Well, you came, and then you got interested in, it's interesting, you came from California, you came to New York. What brought you to New York? Why did you come to New York? Or what brought you here, I should say? Or were you just on a flyer, or just give it a try?
Well, I mean, it was pretty spontaneous. I guess, of course, everyone says there's this fascination with New York City, and I kind of wanted to try.
Well, it's a great town, I think, yeah.
But I'd really say for me it was mostly an interest in getting into the independent media world.
Okay, well, you came to the right place with Dee Dee Hallack.
Yeah. And I came, I was in LA. I was really interested in getting into like documentary filmmaking. And LA just, there's a lot of film.
Yeah,
there's a huge film industry, but it's not the type of media that I was interested in.
They don't have that there? They don't have that? You would think there would be, with all that talent and everything, you think that some of that would have gotten into politically organized media.
I think in my perspective at the time, and I think that since I've learned about a lot of projects that are really interesting that are happening in LA, but I think in my perspective at the time, first of all, I wanted to move somewhere new. I'd grown up in California.
Yeah, that happens, sure.
But in my perspective, it was like LA was really mostly around film in Hollywood.
Yeah, like feature film.
More
Hollywood,
feature film, big budget. And I just wasn't really interested in that kind of filmmaking. So I came to New York, and
because of your concern, if I may suggest, with your thing with the social and political and economic justice.
Well, I was interested in producing media that was more engaging with social issues. Yeah. And that was.
Did you do any reading of or concern with the theory of media or anything like Marshall McLuhan or James Joyce or any of that, or try to understand the implications of extended consciousness that media is, along with all the rest of technology?
I studied a little bit of theory around communications and media, but that wasn't really my focus in college.
Right, okay.
I was
political.
It was political, and then
social.
And then I also did very technical film.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So you did.
So I studied, it was a minor in film.
It was a minor at the university then? And so you learned Final Cut and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that was where I learned Final Cut and how to use video cameras and everything.
And
lighting design, sound design.
And you took actual courses in that? Were they good? Do you think they were well taught and so forth?
Yeah, I thought they were okay.
Yeah.
Again, I just constantly had this frustration at USC with the way that things were taught. They were grooming us more for
the business.
For the business, the Hollywood business. For having the skills that are needed in that specific sector, rather than developing our own. Of course, there was always a focus on critical thinking and developing our critical thinking.
Well, try to be,
But they wanted, I think there was definitely, a
molding you to make money.
Molding us to
make money.
No,
to have the skills that are going to make you money. One of our, Dee Dee Hallack, we're going to talk about I love her dearly. She's been on the scene forever. She was with Mr. Stilling out in San Diego. She was teaching out there at the university, and she was one of the great grandmothers of public access and everything with Deep Dish. We want to get into it. It's great that you're helping her and she's helping you, and you're working together.
It's a really cool partnership.
And, absolutely, and the people she's associated with, she knows everybody. And one of them is George Stoney, who was the father of cable television.
And that was how we met, was at an event where he showed one of his films, the Paulo Freire film.
Yeah, Paulo Freire. Oh, that one. Yeah, right. He'd made documentaries back in the 30s and everything. He's an older man now, but he's a great guy, really beautiful guy. And he lamented to me the other day that he's been teaching film and documentary making at NYU for, decades.
He just retired.
And he's just finally retired, but he's up in his 90s now. But he's a wonderful, bright, important. There would be no MNN and everything if it wasn't for him. The public access movement. He's a great hero of that, but he was a great documentary filmmaker, and like Faraday and that kind of stuff, Nanook. But anyway, he was lamenting that the classroom has changed, and I used to be a professor years ago. But the classroom has changed to where what the students come in, and they are what it seems to him, and it seems to me too, they're so outer directed. That is, they come in and they say, what do I have to do to get an A? Because I've got to get into Harvard Business. Because if I get into Harvard Business, I get a Rolodex on Wall Street, and I can make a lot of money. And that seems to be, they're so outer directed rather than really inner directed, real interest in learning and that kind of thing. And it's gone that way. Do you think it's true that the whole process of the educational process is to create people who are going to have certain skill sets that's going to make them get along materialistically, let's say make money and become a success in that Hollywood thing, rather than really pursue their own vision?
I think that.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do understand, and I think sadly, it is true.
It's the trend
mostly,
is that.
But I do think that there are some professors and some classes, some people, some little locusts of things that are really going on. I mean, there's this one class that I took in college at the Institute for Multimedia Literacy.
Okay.
And
was that part of the university?
It was part of the university. It was one of the newer departments at the university, actually. And
subversive.
Very definitely subversive.
Good, we need that.
And it was cool, and they really did encourage creating multimedia projects that were engaging with, current issues.
Creativity. Real creativity.
Really, and really teaching Final Cut to people, to seniors that had no idea how to use Final Cut ever.
Yeah, seniors are terribly disadvantaged, in this. Yeah.
Oh, I meant seniors in college.
Oh, seniors. No, well, I meant the broader issue societally is the technology. Everything's becoming so technologically oriented, and the youth are just brought up. You know how to do things the way you know how to speak English. At your mother's knee you learned it. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on with the thing about the university experience.
I think that overall, I think you're
money
right.
trumps everything.
And there is this overall. I mean, I don't think just in university either.
In the society, right.
I think from kindergarten on, the whole school system is grooming kids to really fit into the system and not question authority and.
Exactly right. To not question authority and to respond to an authority figure, so you'll fit in to corporate cubicle capitalism.
Exactly.
And it's
I mean, I think that the people that are in university are privileged in the sense that, okay, they're being groomed to have the Rolodexes on Wall Street, but when you look at the kids, in the Bronx, for example, that I teach that are in 5th grade,
in Brazil,
it's much more
in the favelas
of
the world.
It's much more about. Education is much more about grooming them to, respond well to authority.
Yeah, just to be good
and not question the status quo.
Yeah, there's a trend in that. I mean, I don't know if you're old enough to have enough experience to be able to get a sense of a trend of things, over time. Like I'm older, so it's gone. It used to be, like I relate back in your age or so, you're younger than that even, but I was young. I mean, I was a professor back in 1970. When that was the era when it was very, very, there was something blowing in the wind. Bobby Dylan, when he was a poet at that time, was right on the money. And there was a huge thing going on that was shaking the whole world. He said the times they are changing, and the time of
But do you feel like those, okay, because I feel like people keep on talking about
You're probably sick of hearing about.
I am sick of it.
Okay.
I do think that there's lots of organizing going on right now, and that lots of youth are responding in spite of, you know, this trend societally and institutionally to like grooming them for the status quo, to to respect authority.
Well, that's been
I think that there's a lot of organizing going on that is really exciting.
Okay.
And I think that there's a lot of movement now.
Okay.
Now that's led by youth. You know, I mean, you look at what's going on with the immigration movement across the country.
Okay.
Or you look at what's going on around Gaza and Palestine. I was in Cairo 2 years ago for the Gaza Freedom March.
Okay.
And it was really exciting to see how many people were there, and I think that it kind of started switching the tide of things. And you know, now already we're talking about, you know, giving legitimacy to Palestine as a state, you know, at the UN level. So I think it's really there is a lot of stuff to look at and be inspired about right now, looking at this state of youth, you know. And I mean, maybe the challenges are bigger, and maybe corporations have a big, you know, a stronger hold or something, but I do think that there's a lot of movement going on.
Okay, well, that's good. I hope you're right. I don't know how wide or spread that is compared to them.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I would hope so. But it seems to me, and George said this to me in a conversation, that you might have 2 or 3 people out of a class of 100 that might be thinking about something other than making money.
Well, yeah, and so
but they're being forced only to think about money because the system, it seems to be the only value. Everything is measured in terms of. Back then, let me share with you a minute. Back then, 1970, I make a plea for 1970, not in a sense of the good old days or something, but that there was something major going on then, existentially going on. One thing that can be suggested is that was the time of Vietnam. We were dropping napalm on little babies in Vietnam. It was unconscionable what was going on. That was there. We had apartheid in the south of the country. I mean, apartheid. It was outright apartheid. That kind of thing. We had we landed on the moon. We made that. There were these things, and then also we. Well, it was the beginning. It was the beginning of cable access. There was no cable. There was no multi-channel capacity. You were thinking that way. It was Woodstock. We had Woodstock, and we had this kind of a thing, and there was something blowing in the wind, and nobody. No, there was probably still there. But the youth was not, nobody was thinking very much, or huge numbers that were all over the world. There was something shook the world. It was in France, it was all over the world. Something was going on. And the weapon systems that had been advanced, you're talking geopolitics and so forth, we have an ability to extend our consciousness and make things, the world different than in an Eden-like sense is given by the creatures. You know, we can make a house rather than have to find an abandoned cave that nature leaves. We can make the world different. And one of the things that you can do with that extended tool making or technology, and which has led it throughout most of our 200,000 years of existence as a species on this planet, has been weapons that give a political advantage to a group who can then go and conquer others, steal their grain, make their tribe strong, and have you have a Gatling gun rather than a rifle, so you can conquer other people and become the strong leader. That's what's and those weapon systems finally, after, well, special theory of relativity was 1905, and then it took a while to extend it out. They got it out, and then we got Big Boy and so forth in the Second World War. But even in the Second World War, but the weapon systems then, from the modeling, as I understand it, the weapon systems finally became, as they exist, on silos. And this was always part of the consciousness of the older folks. The weapon systems, about 1970, about the same time that this whole thing, it wasn't just sex, drugs, and rock and roll big party. It was a whole lot of things going on existentially. The weapon systems became species lethal. That is, if they were to be unleashed in a spasm of hatred, like has been the history of the world, you know, usually irrational things happening, it would mean the end of the evolutionary process of humanity, which is an existential new reality in the universe. Do you understand what I'm saying? You think? So it's a marker of something that was the evolutionary change of things in a very large pattern.
But that's still the case now.
Well, it is now. They'll say, well, we got START. Soviet Union, remember it used to be the Soviet Union, George Kennan, containment, you got all that,
yeah.
right? And then it's 89, it imploded. Mm-hmm. Fukuyama writes, it's the end of history because we've won. The good guys have won, mm-hmm. You see, and they got that in their order and everything like that. But the point being is that I think they are, particularly binary bacteriological things. They got agencies now, black ops, and things they'll do in order, because realpolitik in the sense of if you're strong and you win, you're above the law. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Eisenhower, I would submit, I wonder, you're a geopolitician, you got that thinking. Eisenhower, we had absolute complete air superiority when they went and firebombed Dresden. Mm-hmm. There was nothing they could do. By then they were absolutely, and they went and firebombed and killed hundreds of thousands of women and children.
And a story
it was
like
a war
that
crime.
is erased from
it's
history.
A war crime.
We don't talk about Dresden at all.
No, not only Dresden, they also firebombed Tokyo. The point
right.
being, you get to a point where they've got such a capability that he's a war crime. Mm-hmm. Mr. Eisenhower, he's the one who ordered it. They knew that. There was no defense. You just went and bombed big children in order to, you know what I mean? Because the hatred's so deep, all of that. So we got to a point where that was the case. But if you are the winner of the war, then the law doesn't apply to you. You never see anybody go in the dock for war crimes we were dropping napalm on little children. War crimes. But you don't go in as long as you keep above the.
As long as you're the winner.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you understand? Yeah. Winner take all. So you'd better be a winner. That kind of thinking is still prevalent. Mm-hmm. But something was different in 1970. It changed, and it was an existential new reality. Do the youth ever read things in that large pattern, or are they just thinking of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or what?
Do the youth
think in terms
my generation?
This generation. One last little thing, then I want to let you talk because I want to learn from you. But I don't know if you've ever read or been involved with Isaac Asimov.
Yeah, I've read a little bit of Isaac Asimov.
Isaac Asimov is a large systems thinker. Mm-hmm. Systems, beyond politics, beyond economics, beyond all the disciplines, specializations and everything. Said this is the defining generation now. 10,000 generations. We're either now, we have the adverse side of that destructive scenario that is apparently the case. There's a technological capability of transcending material scarcity, which has been the reality throughout 200,000 years of human existence until about the year 1970, the same time that the weapons became species lethal. We were transcending at the level of capability, not the reality and reifying the outdated institutions out of history. We were transcending material scarcity as an ontologic reality, including the ecology. We were coming into a whole.
Transcending material scarcity?
At the level of capability, there's always been more overwhelmingly throughout human history, more have-nots than haves.
Right.
Everything would become controlled by the leader, and the other people are walling around in the mud of poverty and inability to full their potential and everything like that. And so we were protected in our impotence against just wiping out the evolution of consciousness leading edge, which is Homo sapien in the evolution of consciousness. Mm-hmm. Okay? So then we have a capability of providing for everyone with good design, and with particularly, I don't know if you guys, you youth, I'm talking you guys, youth, ever ran into Buckminster Fuller? Do they ever read Buckminster Fuller or Marshall McLuhan or James Joyce or any of the people who are trying to read technology in a large pattern? That Fuller said that we were transcending, and he had projected from 1952, we were going to reach a point where collectively our capability, he had a thing, all the trends, human population capability, new materials, all the things that are coming, before there was cyber. It was all a longer trend, and it's all coming into the 20th century, and it reached out from 1952, projected into the future. He said in about 20 years there were about 10% of the world population could be seen to be haves. Need a definition of terms. Okay, but just get away from the details. Haves, have-nots, and there was the best minds were thinking about this. He said we're 10% by the First World War, and this coming out of 200,000 years. 10% and about 20% of the world could be seen realistically to be have in terms of our collective capability to provide life support in an ecological context for the world population. And he said in 1952 he predicted a 20-year period of imminent crisis to all human institutions which had been built within a context where scarcity was the ontologic, the reality. There was not enough, zero sum. He said we had about a 20-year period, and he said he lived out his life that we crossed that line in 1970. There were more haves than have-nots at the level of capability with good design and doing more with less. The microchip is a beautiful example of that. Or a satellite. It takes 175,000 tons of copper cable to connect London and New York by transatlantic cable. It could be done by a 400-pound transponder on a satellite. Doing more with less with good design. And that we were transcending material scarcity, and the scarcity was the basis of all the zero-sum thinking of our realpolitik and fighting and so forth, that it was a moment of qualitative change. As Asimov said, this is the defining generation. We have the ability to liberate and bring justice, which has never been possible historically until this time, to the whole of the world society within an ecological order. But we have institutions that are reifying, outdated institutions that we've inherited out of history. But this is the defining generation in the whole evolutionary process. Does youth ever think like that? Or what do you say to that?
Well,
do you understand what I said?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of understand. I'm not sure I understand some of these theories. But, I mean, I do feel like we've definitely reached a point where there are very few people that are in control of everything, that are the haves, and then that there's,
always have been, darling. Always have been,
right?
Emperors of Rome, pharaohs.
But don't you feel like it's been even more consolidated in some ways because people have even fewer resources, and those resources are really even more concentrated in the hands of fewer people.
Well, it's becoming that way certainly now.
Right.
It's all in the hands of the bankers and the politicians. And they don't have a vision. And the intellectuals are not, I've ticked off a few. Is it Lady Gaga? Who are the leaders of the youthful intellectual concern with the human condition that people cotton on to? It used to be Buckminster Fuller. You seem not to have read him.
No, I've read a little bit of Buckminster Fuller.
You should read a lot of him, okay? Also, you can do a Google search now. It's very encouraging. You can do a Google search. You can I typed in, not knowing how to make the computer work or anything, but typed in post-scarcity economic ontology. You get 200,000 hits of people looking at that idea that we may have transcended material scarcity. Never mentioned in the news, never mentioned anywhere, the large... Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these, the mainstream news anyways tends to focus on much more
the traditional way of...
unimportant news often.
It's not unimportant, it's like
narrow focus.
No, it's if you're talking about non-scarcity, that there is enough for all, not zero sum, zero something. That's if one wins, the other has to lose because there's not enough. I get 10 marshmallows, you get none. That kind of thinking has been characteristic of all of 200,000 years of our history in a collective sense. Can you understand?
Yeah.
And that now we're transcending that. There's enough for all. We'll get to the point where people aren't going to have to be concerned with who gets a piece of bread or whatever. Do you understand?
So you think we're getting to that point?
Yeah, we're coming to a time. Yes, we're in it. And I'm wondering, is youth picking up on it? I'm very encouraged.
But it doesn't seem to me that that's the case at all.
Well, you don't hear it anywhere.
Well, I mean, I don't feel like it's the reality either.
Oh, you don't think that's real? Okay.
No, I mean, I don't think it's true that everybody's that there's
no.
Oh.
I'm sorry, dear. You're not talking about the reality. The reality is you've got all these.
Oh, we're talking about the ontological.
Yes,
reality.
you're talking about capability.
It would be possible.
Yeah, but it wasn't possible in the past. Do you understand the distinction?
If our system wasn't in place, right? Yeah.
No, but it has a reality beyond just inflection point of thinking. It has in terms of institutional structures and institutions that are... Do you understand?
Yeah.
That it's not...
And so you feel, obviously, that we should really mobilize in order...
Around
so
that idea.
That can be
And does
reality.
youth ever pick up on the idea that we live... This is not just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That there are social issues and that there are realities that could be understood. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean...
Because they don't say, who are are the heroes?
I mean, I think it
Who are the
depends on
heroes?
what youth you're talking to.
Well, intellectually, you're intellectually curious.
My intellectual.
Who do we go to?
So I can speak for myself.
Okay, good.
I mean, I would say one of my intellectual heroes right now would be someone like Malkia Cyril from the Center for Media Justice.
Okay, talk to me. I don't know. That's good. I'd like to learn.
She works for this organization called the Center for Media Justice, which is based out in California.
Yeah, right. That's where you got involved. Yeah.
No, I didn't get involved with them, but the reason that I actually found out about this organization was through Magnet, which is the Media Action Grassroots Network, which is basically a national coalition of organizations that work towards media justice and around media policy. Big issue, yeah. And I mean, I would say that someone like Malkia, really is like putting, like basically able to speak to these issues in a really eloquent way, has a really complicated and like I think beautiful understanding of like the way that people need to really mobilize and work together in order to change the media, because that is
media. You're talking media now. That's
I'm talking
important,
about media, but I think that basically the media really does have a big impact on the access that people have to changing policies.
Yeah.
Around other issues, and in terms of like giving a voice to people who don't have at all a platform, to discuss their issues and so that they can be addressed. And I mean, I feel like there are definitely lots of youth, in my generation that are really concerned about these issues.
The issues of media access, is that what you're talking about?
No. Well, that's what I'm talking about specifically. That's like what I'm especially interested in.
Yeah, right.
But to address your question about whether, youth,
what message goes
people
into
my age, whether they're concerned about the fact that there is the possibility in the world for everybody to, get their piece of bread, as you put it.
No, not just themselves. They're not just interested in getting it for themselves. They're interested
others.
Systems. They're thinking it's like there's 100 trillion cells in a human organism. Every cell matters. Everyone's in communication. So we're coming to a sense of stirring. It's like almost we're coming into a new relationship, being born into a new world.
Yeah.
Is there any of that kind of inspiration? What message is going to be conveyed by a system of media expansion of everybody? It's not enough to just have the media. You have to have some message that's going to be relevant, rather than what we get through all the propaganda machines of reestablishing the outdated institutions in which we all find ourselves. That's the point I'm getting. Where's the message coming from? Or what is it? Is it political? Are there Marxists? They used to have Marx, Karl Marx, in terms of economics. Is it Schumpeter, creative entrepreneurialism? Is it, I don't know, who's the guy, who, where, what?
I mean,
who are
I'm
the
not
people?
really sure what
Fareed Zakaria,
would fit into,
Obama? Is Obama good? What do they think about Obama?
Well, I mean, again, I can't speak for everyone my age.
No, I know that.
But for my own, I mean, no, for me, it's not Obama.
Okay. Who is it? Or where is it? Where is the message? Where's the inspiration? Not for the media. Oh, that's very interesting, and it's good. The media gets so. But what is going on? Where's the understanding in a comprehensive way? That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I'm very frustrated because it doesn't seem...
Because there isn't a particular theorist.
That's
the problem, though, that I feel like talking in theories like this and trying to ascribe a vision to one particular, visionary thinker.
Yeah, that's a danger.
Is dangerous.
Look at Nazism.
And I do feel like, it's also sort of classist because, to be able to talk about these kinds of theorists and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, many people don't talk about those. Many people don't go to college to study that. And so to me, it's not really about finding one person, which would generally be an older white male. It wouldn't be about finding that one person whose theories I would ascribe to or be inspired by.
It's dangerous to get worried about looking for that.
And honestly, I feel like it's
It's
I
just
feel like
happening.
often those people aren't as grounded in the reality as the people that are maybe organizing on the ground. And so that's why I say someone like Malkia Ciro, who is, you know, a community organizer and, you know, advocate for media reform and media justice.
Why you keep coming back to media?
So-
It's good.
Okay,
Dee Dee's
yeah,
there.
so-
Yeah,
so
and
media-
we're in public
the reason,
access.
and I keep on, and I do keep on
right.
going back to media because to me that's really at the forefront of like what I've become engaged in order for things to be transformed. I think that the media needs to be reformed and transformed.
Marshall McLuhan, you're familiar with Gutenberg? Yeah. He said the medium is the message.
Right.
The medium is far more important than the message. And I'm trying to talk about the message, and you're saying the medium is, and it's true. And Dee Dee's been doing that.
And it's who has the platform, you know? It's about who has the platform. Right.
That's the message.
But who has access to the medium?
Well, all right. No, but the medium, the existence of the medium is perhaps more important than the messages going out.
The existence of the medium, but it's also about who is the one that's in control of that medium, right?
Well, well, that's the message.
I would argue, but it's not just the message.
Okay.
It's also, I mean, I don't think that the medium is just the message. It's also like who is in control of that medium.
Okay,
who is the one that decides what gets to be put.
Well, who is in control? Isn't it the power structures du jour that everybody just bows down to, and it's all propaganda?
Well,
by and large, except for things like public access.
I would say that by and large, yes, it is. But I think that there's lots of mobilization around changing that.
You think there is? Well, you got, David McChesney and the Free Press and the thing in public access.
I would argue free press is still not very radical, in my opinion.
What is radical? Deep Dish?
I think that Deep Dish is radical, yeah.
She has been right from the beginning, And we should realize you're working close with her, and I think that's wonderful, Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, something like free press is much more catering towards lobbyists and towards, being in partnership with the government. I think that, it is sort of liberal.
You're talking McChesney at Urbana,
I mean, I'm the reason that I'm sort of down on free speech TV right now is because I went to the National Conference for Media Reform in March or something. And it was really disappointing. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was the speaker, the keynote speaker.
That's the Democratic Party,
And it was very much, I felt like the whole National Conference for Media Reform, which was organized by Free Speech TV, was really pandering to the interests of the Democrats.
Okay, well, that would be understandable. They would. They're coming from what you call the left, I guess you would say that. So who's good?
Coming from
Where's
the left.
good other than Dee Dee Hallack?
Where's good?
Or that person at Southern Middle, where's the inspiration? Are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect? And where do you find inspiration that would help you be optimistic?
Okay. Well, that's
why?
a big question, but...
where's good?
Yeah, where's good? I think that there's lots of good going on at the community level. I feel, that's what I am inspired by is community media.
Okay.
And at the really local level, people, taking control of the media and, broadcasting.
Where is that happening? Like WBAI? Do you like Pacifica Radio?
Sure, yeah.
That was good.
That's an important.
Our executive director used to be executive director of Pacifica.
I mean, I think that something that really inspired me and really reinvigorated my inspiration in this work. Is when I was in West Africa in February.
You were there,
I was in Senegal and in Mali.
Oh, yeah.
I was with Indie Media doing a whole series. It was called an Indie Media Convergence, and basically
Indie Media. What's
independent media?
Yeah, but what is that? Is that an institution or a movement or what? What is it? Is it somebody you can identify?
It's a network of media activists that.
Okay, who is it headed up by somebody?
No, it's an anarchist organization. So there's no one leader. But we were in West Africa doing. It was a convergence, and so basically it was activists from across the continent of Africa and some people from the U.S. and Europe as well, who were basically converging, and it was a media skills building and kind of networking opportunity too for activists so that they could learn more about each other's work and maybe collaborate, and then also develop their media skills so that they could use media more effectively.
Yeah, they used to have this social forum that was counter to the Davos, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, and
media.
this convergence actually went along at it was at the same time as the World Social Forum in Dakar in Senegal.
In Dakar,
this was
yeah.
early February.
Wadi is the president.
Abdoulaye Wade, yeah.
Yeah, Wade,
And so, to me, it was really, really inspiring to meet activists from all over the continent.
He's in favor of
15 women that were at the convergence from the Niger Delta, and they're basically organizing women that are from really impacted communities that are really impacted by the oil industry, by oil extraction, because the Niger Delta is really heavily.
Yeah, I know.
Lots of oil extraction going on.
Yeah, right, I know.
And there were 15 women that were there who were from, communities that are really affected by this. They were in Dakar to learn media skills so that they could, develop, so that they could broadcast their message further. Because a lot of the actions that they've been organizing, which are direct actions, I mean, they've organized huge protests that have shut down oil tank farms. Like there was one protest that shut down an oil tank farm of Chevron for 10 days. And this was organized by women there. And so I feel like the idea of training these people that are engaged in really local, struggles on the ground in their homes, teaching them and helping them develop their media skills is the most empowering, because they're able to use those media skills to, tell the message themselves.
And by leading that, you're talking about the skills of both audio and multimedia. I mean, and that would be editing, quick cuts, and how you can get a good thing across.
So that's another question: is what media is the most relevant?
The ones
you
who
talk about is.
If you're talking media, what are you talking about media skills? You point a camera and you point and you shoot.
So that's a good question. And I feel like, do you want to learn video? Do you want to learn radio? Do you want to learn, just like written, journalism? Like what medium is the most relevant for which community? And I think that's something.
And how does one approach the medium? Where all the creative talent is, the medium writ large, is in the advertising industry, because they really know how to manipulate human consciousness. And you can really learn how to get something viral that can just get people jumping off cliffs. You know what I'm saying? You can manipulate. So you're trying to learn. You're trying to teach.
Well, I'm not trying to teach those things.
So what you're for? You're for the people against the bad guys. The good people against the bad guys. If you normalize, the good people are the mass of the people who are fighting what's in order. You're revolutionarily inclined. You want to see revolutionary change, but you don't think there has to be any Fuller, one of the things he said you're going to be able to get to is finally when you get down, particularly if you get, if I may, old. I'm old, right? So we look at message and that. And he said, when we finally get down to where you've transcended, if it's true, and it's a projection, intellectual projection. James Joyce is best reader of technology and its implications and everything. When you finally get down to where, if it's true, it could be presented. We've transcended material scarcity. Think 300 years out, nobody's going to be fighting about who's going to do the thing in Nigeria or something. But anyway, get down to that. If you do, do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're coming into a whole new way of being in the universe. Okay, if you get down to where you've got the message of that, he said what you'll come up with is what we need is, or we will be able to achieve given that level of understanding. Intellectuals would do that, not politicians. They reify outdated things. And then people fight against that, the same old thing. But what you would come up with is an operating manual for spaceship Earth. When you take something out of the box, we're coming out of 200,000 years of evolution, 13.8 billion years of evolution in this universe and so forth. We're coming to a new, and in species appearance, you're in steady state, and then you come to a point, and there's this quickening, you're in the womb or you're in the birth canal, and then there's a thing called punctuated equilibrium, and the new appears. You're coming into a new relationship in the cosmos called liberation. But he says you need an operating manual. You take a new thing out of the box, you got 20,000 gigabytes of what the capacity is. You take an instrument out. We need an operating manual that's in keeping with that new ontologic reality. And I don't wonder, I would look for that. And we don't have it. Or do we? Who are the intellectuals that are worthy of putting some sort of a grid out of that, other than localized kind of people protesting the bad guys?
Well, I don't know. I feel like those these intellectuals are so isolated from reality that they don't end up having that much of a sway anyways. I mean,
perhaps so, you're right.
I think that the real change needs to come from the grassroots.
You think it will? Okay.
Not from intellectuals and theories and ascribing to those theories and getting your vision from that, but
so you have faith in the
I do have faith in the
you know, what's his name?
I do have faith in like the local level organizing and that leading to some sort of transformation, whether it's, you know, coalitions, you know, like collaborations and, you know, people working together that are coming from different places.
You familiar with the thing in Spain, the Mondragon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot. It's coming into California
really
now.
Exciting.
Mondragon, and that's a co-op.
I feel like, I feel like media has to be a big, you know, media is a tool that can be used in organizing that and spreading that.
But it's a two-edged sword, because it can also be used to manipulate human consciousness and everything. And it's interesting.
Well,
we don't have to be concerned with the message. We don't have to be concerned with the message. All good will come out. You don't think there's a chance that we're dropping predator bombs on Libya now, and we're going to attack other places, and we're extending our power, and we've still got the same old realpolitik notions of if you're strong enough, you win, you can do whatever you want, you can go and rape women, you can kill everybody, and that's still there operative in the thinking of the people who could blow it up. Doesn't concern you?
It absolutely
and you think there's no
concerns
reason to
me.
take a measure of any of that or try to find some sort of understanding of what's going on?
Oh, absolutely.
It'll just happen?
I do. No, I
You have
absolutely
faith that it will just happen out of the local things that people are doing, even though they don't know what they're doing?
I mean, I keep faith in that. I think that it's a big uphill battle. Yeah. And I definitely think that it's important to be thinking about, you know, why is this happening?
What's it all about?
And trying to figure out. I mean, I don't know what it's all about, but
you don't think it matters that we know? We don't know.
I do think it matters.
The Scottish have a song. I'm Scottish background, Scottish and like me human and all that. They have a song. We don't know where we're going, but we're on our way. We don't know where we're going, but we're here to say lie-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-lie-ay. We don't know where we're going, but we're on our way. Yeah. And Fuller used to postulate.
I mean, that could be a really
Is there any purpose?
Song.
Is there any purpose to? Yeah, we could jump right off the lemmings off the cliff, right? Okay, that's exactly right. If we don't know, and you seem to think it doesn't matter because it's all going to emerge out of the mass.
I do think it matters, but what is it that we're going to figure out?
Well, then what's it all about? The questions that we said, Cro-Magnon,
I think we already. Okay, the thing is I feel like we already know what.
What is it? What is life about? What's it all about? What's the purpose in you? Is there any purpose in universe? Second law of thermodynamics controls everything because everything's thermodynamic in the universe. Second law of thermodynamics. All systems move toward chaos to the limits of the system. Fuller postulated the biological evolutionary process was an anti-entropic function in the universe that brought increased conscious pattern of understanding to the evolution of consciousness.
So the opposite of
it ran across entropy, exactly. And that we are fulfilling that. After 200,000 years. And there is a purpose, and it is knowing and having an understanding. We've got the accelerator.
Wait, that's the purpose of life?
The purpose of evolution is to move across entropy and bring increased patterns of conscious understanding to the process of which we are a part within a universe 13.8 billion years old now, which may be within a multi-universe system, so we don't know for sure if it's closed or... These intellectual questions matter, and having some understanding of what the hell we're doing rather than just doing what seems to be right, it seems to me is something that is, I just wonder how you thinks about those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to be,
have some
clarifying
idea
and understanding more. I think that there is a lot of understanding, though, and I think that there is like a lot of clarity in terms of what interests are being
Well, I'll tell you
served
when we've run out of time. That's the problem. We're running out of time, darling. And give my love to Dee Dee. She's an absolute angel, and to Joel, right? And to all the people. And we have to continue like this. You're going to be away for a few months. Let's be in touch and and tell me report back to me when you get back to New York.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much.